In today's aviation news recap, Singapore Airlines has made a groundbreaking decision with regards to flying into Australia. There's a new Indian airline that has hopes to be profitable soon, and updates surrounding Boom, Supersonic, and why not begin there, with the company officially completing the second flight of its XB-1, a supersonic demonstrator designed to aid the development of the eventual full-scale Overture. During the second flight, Boom says the type successfully retracted and therefore extended the landing gear, which was an important achievement for the team behind the aircraft and something it was very much focused on for this flight. Other objectives, however, were also laid out for the second flight, with Boom stating it wanted to assess the XB-1's overall handling qualities. Furthermore, the ability to activate the new digital stability augmentation system, that is a mouthful for sure, was something it also looked to focus in on. The system that I speak of has been implemented to improve handling qualities, and this comes after the conclusion of the first flight and obvious feedback that will come from it. The flight lasted some 15 minutes and saw the aircraft reach a maximum altitude of 10,400 feet, and in terms of a top speed, well, that was 232 knots or 277 miles per hour. The founder and CEO of Boom stated that the second flight was a resounding success, and initial results indicated a resolution of findings found during Flight 1, which at least to us indicates some form of progression each time this plane gets in the sky, even if it has been limited so far. The overall pathway that Boom envisaged with this aircraft will continue, and the second flight represents another vital chapter in the return to supersonic air travel, which is aimed at being done through Overture, as I touched on, this a full-scale aircraft. What next for the XB-1? Well, having completed that all-important second flight, Boom wants to expand the flight envelope to really focus in on performance and handling qualities before it reaches Mach 1. As part of these checks, Boom will focus strictly on elements such as the in-flight systems, alongside test points to better understand boundaries regarding vibrations that could occur. The path to supersonic flying is still some time away, but it is visible. Boom states that approximately 10 flights are planned, which will act as now the next phase of flight testing before the demonstrator will eventually be able to reach those all-important supersonic speeds. Following the overhaul to the primary Overture design that you may recall occurred in the last 2 years and added an engine, the XB-1 has received its fair share of criticism, with some onlookers now discrediting the demonstrator's purpose because of those radical design changes to the primary aircraft. Despite this, Boom has slowly but surely powered along and focused on moving forward with the XB-1. Getting it airborne was a massive step, and there's much more on the cards. And while there's still a lot of doubters and skepticism, it is exciting at least to see some visible progress to you and me. Over to Singapore Airlines, and they're becoming the first international company to get approval and confirm that they'll fly into Sydney's new airport. This is something that may have flown under the radar, that being a new airport for Australia, but it is in the works, and it'll be located specifically in the west. The Changi-based carrier will fly into Western Sydney Airport when it opens in 2026, permitting no further delays, with direct flights to be offered by the major international company. Ultimately, Singapore Airlines has an enormous opportunity, and that is a quote directly from the Prime Minister of Australia, who stated that this new airport is going to successfully alleviate pressures on the primary Kingsford Smith. While Singapore Airlines mainline aircraft fly several times a day across many Australian cities, including that of Sydney, it's important to note that it does have a low-cost division in Scoot, which also has a presence countrywide. As a result, this gives them lots of opportunity to rejig their network to utilise this new Western Sydney airport. Singapore Airlines will join the likes of the Qantas Group, including low-cost division Jetstar, in announcing plans to operate domestic flights out of the new airport. Airline coups won't stop there, if you will, with the Transport Minister Catherine King stating that talks are ongoing with regards to adding Vietnam Airlines and Turkish Airlines sometime in the future. And while these are just talks, it does show the direction for this airport is nothing small. Turkish Airlines is one of the newest entrants into the market across Australia, with service to Melbourne commencing earlier this year. However, the airline at that point made its intent very clear, and that was to offer 2 flights a day to Australia, one into Melbourne and one into Sydney, non-stop from Istanbul when it had the aircraft capable of doing this. King added that bilateral negotiations are important, and these discussions have led to some exciting propositions concerning airlines pivoting to the secondary airport. This airport has mammoth potential, and like I touched on, the intent is really clear. That is to see 10 million passengers through the location annually at its opening, and then upwards of 80 million per annum by 2060. The prospective growth potential, I'd argue, is off the chart when considering the size of the airfield, which is significantly bigger than Kingsford Smith. The opening will ease pressures on that latter airport. At the current point, this new airport is 80% completed and valued at over $5 billion. Again, a really big commitment to the region. Over to India now, where the final story sits with Akasa Air. In a new interview with the Economic Times, its CEO stated that it hopes to be profitable by at least 2028 and plans will involve it also going public. Why is this, in my opinion, such an interesting comment from its CEO? Well, it's because taking a look at the state of Akasa Air since its launch, it's been pretty complicated. They've, yes, expanded their network and committed in truckloads to new aircraft, but their losses are something that are only continuing, and as a result, there is some skepticism about the long-term sustainability of this airline, which was founded following the COVID-19 pandemic. The CEO, when speaking with the Economic Times, said he was very optimistic about the future, and he hoped that profitability would be reached in the next 3 years. Operating costs have since launch arguably exceeded what was initially forecasted, and this follows some unforeseen complexities that have hit the airline. Some of the most notable issues relate to the airline's ability to receive aircraft on time, which has had many knock-on effects. Unfortunately, given supply chain complexities, delivery timeframes have been completely skewed, leaving Akasa Air scrambling. Furthermore, the knock-on effect, while simultaneously, I guess you could say, also being unrelated, is pilot hiring has proved not just more complex, but more costly than ever. And for Akasa Air, their losses have continued to mount. But it shouldn't be perceived as a concern, per the CEO, who notes that these substantial losses that are only continuing are part of the business model, which is to spend that little bit more to build Akasa Air up as an airline that has a solid foundation and backing, and then eventually profits will roll in. This can be perceived as certainly a risky approach. Essentially, you're spending money and hoping, even if you have data to back it, that you'll lose money and eventually become profitable. Akasa Air, at least, believes it's firmly on the right track. It also notes that it not flying into some of your leading cities within the country certainly doesn't aid it, as these are maybe the more profitable markets that it just hasn't really dove into yet. That'll conclude today's aviation news recap. If you have any thoughts, you can let me know down below in the comments. Thank you very much for your support. Take care, be safe, and I'll see you tomorrow for your latest industry news.
And we'll fly.